So, hello and welcome. And we are joined today with Trevor Tolley, the founder and lead investigator of Rogues Hollow Paranormal Society. Trevor, thank you for joining us today. How's it going?
It's going great. I appreciate you having me on your podcast.
No, it's like I was saying right before, we've been really excited about having you on and talking to you because Sam, who's also here, is he's
Yep.
been kind of regaling us on your guys'
Good old ghost bait.
adventures and stuff. It's
Yep.
been pretty interesting and stuff. So yeah, can you I guess just get started, talk to us and kind of take us back, like where did you kind of get started with this whole paranormal thing, and what were some of your first experiences?
So about 25 years ago, me and some of my friends, we used to journey to Rogues Hollow. It's a location here in Ohio near Clinton and Doylestown, and has a very rich history. A lot of people passed away there, and there's a lot of reported paranormal activity. So we used to go on the weekends, and we'd go driving through. It's a pretty large area to drive around, where you may experience some activity. And one night we were out there. This is after, I don't know, a year of going out there, and we were driving down one of the side roads, and from where these railroad tracks run, there was these two light anomalies that were traveling side by side, just floating, coming across the field. And we stopped the car, we're watching it, and they come right up in front of the car, move over to the other side. And at this point, this was our first paranormal experience. We're
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
holy crap, get the hell out of here. So we hurry up and we take off.
Right.
And I looked behind us, and they were still illuminated, and you could see them go up the hillside into the woods
Oh
and just
wow.
disappear. So that's
Oh
kind of what
yeah.
started the whole journey, and that's the inspiration for the name of our paranormal group.
Very cool. Yeah, that those like the orbs and stuff is so weird to me because like I don't really know like what to make of them because it's like is I don't know if it is like delves, if it's all like the paranormal and like spirit or entities, or if it's some sort of like UAP type thing or whatever. Like it's a weird thing. Like what did you make of that? And like what I mean, looking back, like what do you think that like possibly could have been?
Well, this wasn't like an orb like you typically see. So a lot of
Okay.
orbs are created from like night vision cameras, infrared, and dust particles will fly in front of the camera, and it illuminates
Mhm.
it, and then it looks like you have something moving across. And
Right.
very rarely do orbs turn out to be something unless there's something very unusual about the orbs. What we witnessed at Rogues Hollow, we weren't using any cameras. This was with our own eyes, and these were large. So they were kind of like egg shaped, would be the best way to
Oh,
describe
okay.
them. They were probably about each one 3 to 4 feet, like from top to bottom.
Hmm.
So it was very strange. But when it comes to orbs, typically when we go through and we look at any type of evidence, most of it gets dismissed unless there's
Mhm.
something very unusual that we can't explain about it.
Hmm. And what are some of the things like when you're looking at that, like you see that are unexplainable? Like what are the some of the like traits and characteristics there?
I would say some of the strangest things I've seen are where they come across and they kind of take their own flight pattern. They're not just like from left to right or up and down. I've seen them where they actually like kind of flash. So they'll come
Mhm.
onto the screen and they just like flicker off and on. They're different from everything else you catch during that entire time filming. Those are a little bit strange, but there's some that aren't clear orbs that just look like some type of light energy that will
Oh
travel in the
wow.
screen and just take a really crazy flight pattern.
Hmm.
And we've actually, Sam,
Yeah.
he actually he recorded
Yeah. I
our
can.
own
That's part
investigations.
of. It's
But
part of what I do. My job too, when I'm doing the videos, is I'm kind of a lot of times that first line of defense because I pick up a lot of orbs whenever I'm shooting. And sometimes even while we're on location, I'm picking up, like I can see orbs while I'm recording and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to want to review that later because, there could be something there. I know we were just out on Saturday and I was telling you and Missy that we were in the treadmill room and I'm like, either this room is extremely dusty or I've picked up a few orbs here and there. So I just dumped the footage tonight. I'm going to be looking over that too. But yeah, sometimes they take weird patterns that include flying directly into my face.
Now
Well,
when
yeah, the best one was that one in Dalton. It
Yeah,
wasn't just an orb; it was like a light streak shot from the middle of the room right into Sam's chest, and
yeah,
then a few seconds later, you could see like an orb just kind of start to illuminate in front of his mouth and then fly away. So
That's
that
wild.
yep.
So that's something that you guys are actually like seeing with your eyes, and also you're picking it
Hmm.
up on the camera as well. So
Yeah.
okay, wow, that's really interesting. So so Trevor, you were saying that like Rogues Hollow and the location you guys are in has like a really kind of rich history
Hmm.
and all like paranormal and just all sorts of other stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and some of the
Yeah.
other stuff that's kind of connected there?
Actually, there was a book written about Rogues Hollow. It's out of print. I actually own a copy of it, but it was a very big, booming area in Ohio back in the 1800s, just a little bit outside of Doylestown, and it was known for its coal mining. There's coal mines all over the place. So a lot of people experienced collapses in the mines. People passed away, and the worst part was a lot of these people that were digging in the mines, they were away from their families working there. So they had 4 or 5 saloons at the time. So in their free time, they would go and get loaded, get into fights, shootings would happen, people would get robbed. Like a lot of people didn't even like to travel in the area at the time because like robbing was really bad. Jesse James was reported as hiding out there at one point in
Okay.
time.
Wow.
Supposedly there was a train that derailed there and people died. They're known for a crybaby bridge. They do have one there. So it's pretty cool. But the light anomalies
Wow.
we saw, what's interesting about that, that is a well-known um, reporting that happens out there. And
Hmm.
the legend goes that supposedly there were 2 boys who died out there at the railroad tracks. A
Okay.
lot of people theorize
Wow.
that these lights are the lights from their lanterns, and they still roam that
Okay.
area.
Wow. That interesting. And so when you guys saw them, like, were they moving? Were they staying still? And if they were,
They were like staying exactly side by side with each other. Like there was no separation,
oh
but they
wow,
moved on their own like this, just across the entire like field and then
oh
up
man.
like I'm talking 5 feet in front of our car, that close. And then
Now,
just went up the hillside.
before that, were you like a believer in the paranormal or anything like that?
I always thought there was something to it, but there
Hmm.
was never anything that made me go, no, it's absolutely real. I'd never seen or heard or experienced something that made me go, the paranormal is real until that moment. And when it happened from that point forward, like nobody can sit there and tell me there's no such thing as the paranormal. Not when you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it. It's hard to explain that away.
Yeah, that's wild. So, I guess like after that, like how did you go from that one experience and then like getting to your first like I guess paranormal investigation and stuff?
Mhm.
How did that all happen?
That's an interesting story. So, my wife is actually a little bit of a well-known medium in the area. Her name's Medium Missy, but when she started doing readings and getting very popular, people would reach out and want her and I to go out and do house cleansings.
Hmm.
So we started getting involved in doing house cleansings. We would go out to people's houses, and I remember one in particular. We had experiences that would happen to us during the cleanses. Like we'd do the walkthrough, kind of check the place out, and we would cleanse it. There was one in particular where I had some type of entity try to actually take my legs out on me. And
Whoa,
you could feel it. Like it was almost like it just kept like trying to swoop through my leg, and it was like electrically charged. And at one point, I
that's
felt it
weird.
physically. So at that point, I looked at my wife. I said, "We have to start documenting this stuff. Like this is crazy. Like nobody's going to believe us. So I'm
Wow.
going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to go buy some equipment. We're going to start getting this stuff." So it really started out her and I going from
That's
place to
awesome.
place trying to catch evidence.
Very cool. What and what like time frame? When was that?
That was probably about 7, 8 years ago. I mean, I'd done a little bit of investigating before then, but we didn't really get super serious till about then.
Okay, very cool. So like did you do some like crash course on how to do these things? Like how did you go through like the process of like obviously, you have your wife who's a medium and
Hmm.
she has those set of, skills, but how did you go from the point of like I need to be able to document this and take real evidence and be sure you're getting the stuff you want?
Studying everybody who's come before us. So, like
Gotcha.
everybody who's done this, I mean, let's be honest. This has become a very popular thing in the past 20 years.
Hmm.
So, studying them and then going out and buying different equipment. And because we were getting exposed to so much paranormal activity through the house cleansings and everything, taking that equipment out on site, testing it, see what worked, see what didn't work, and kind of going from there and then building on from that. And then it's really been about putting together the right team. I've struggled with that for the years.
Mm-hmm.
So any paranormal investigators, or if you're wanting to start your own team out there, uh, pick who you bring on board very carefully would be some really good advice. Because if you
Okay.
have anybody that is ego driven, it's going to kind of disrupt the entire team in the planning, because there is a
Right.
lot of planning that goes into it. So like when we
Mm-hmm.
go on location, uh, anymore we have 1 to 2 film guys that are going around recording everybody. We'll break into 2 different teams, and it has to be organized because
Sure.
it can get out of control very quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
my wife's a medium. We usually bring a second medium on site with us just because we get really backed up information that way. But they can get a little chatty at times, and you got to keep things on track, because if
Right.
not, you're losing a half hour, 40 minutes. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so you really have to keep things organized, and you can't have somebody coming into the team and kind of disrupting everything.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So that's crazy. So, like, when you go into a situation now, like, you're bringing how many people with you to a typical like, investigation?
I would say anywhere from 5 to 8.
Okay.
A lot of it depends, like, on the size of the location. If it's a really
Mm-hmm.
small house or small area we're investigating, obviously you don't want to bring 7 to 8 people, because it's going to make it
Sure.
a lot harder to investigate. You got to worry about your evidence getting contaminated, because if you're only a year shot away and you're doing digital recorder work, you're going to have some problems. You're going to be picking up what they're talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So, I guess like I'm interested to hear some more stories of like your investigations and stuff. Like, what are some of the I guess what are some of the most disturbing situations you found yourself in over the course of investigations? You're like, oh man.
I'll tell you about the first one I found myself in.
Okay.
So, we had done multiple, and it was always kind of like a friendly haunting. You'd get a little bit of touching, or you might get a little bit of evidence, or what have you. But there was one in particular. We received a phone call from one of my wife's fans, actually, clear down in Columbus. And she reached out, and she's like, "We need you guys to come down and do a cleansing. We're seeing shadow figures in the basement. Um, my mother, she's terminally ill. She's down there. She's scared to death. My sister got physically like pulled by the legs off the couch. People are getting scratched. It's really bad." And we're like, "Well, we don't know. It's a good ways away from where we're at." And so finally, we agreed to go down and help them out, because they were really freaked out. So we took a team down, and my wife did the walkthrough, and she kept seeing this shadow entity that had horns and fangs, and it was crawling on the ceilings, crawling on the walls. And
Holy
she did
crap.
not like to be in that basement whatsoever. Like, as soon
Yeah,
as
I
she got
don't
down
blame
there,
her.
walked through, it was like, "I want out."
Holy yeah. Yeah,
So
no kidding. I'd be out too.
yeah, so that's how that investigation started. And
Wow, okay.
I'm down there with another investigator, and we have full spectrum cameras we're running, and we're doing triple shot bursts. You don't want to just do one shot at a time. You want it to shoot like 3, pretty
Right.
fast, because
Okay.
a lot of times they'll try to move out of frame, what have you. So we're taking a lot of pictures, did some EVP work down there. And when I went back to play back one of the EVPs, I was getting growled at, which was
Oh.
disturbing.
Hmm.
I felt touched down there, felt very uneasy. And at one point, we were picking up these high EMF readings, and we were going around the room with the EMF meter. Like, the readings would move. So I would try to follow it with the EMF meter. And the crazy thing is, the guy I was with, he probably took about 10 to 15 camera shots. And
Hmm.
each one, as we followed it around the room, had a strange orb in each one of the pictures.
Oh wow.
So we get done with all that. We do the cleansing. We felt better about the house once we were done with the cleansing. We leave, we go back. I load everything up onto the laptop and, review the evidence that we captured. And on the pictures, exactly what my wife described. And it just looks like a shadow, but like the ductwork coming out of like a furnace.
Yeah, yeah.
So I took a shot, and it was a triple shot, and you could see the shadow move into frame, and then you could see it like contort itself in the second frame, and you could see horns, you could kind of see the mouth, and then in the third frame,
Wow.
you could see it move out, and there was no way to explain it because I was stationary. The lighting
Hmm.
didn't change, I didn't change, and it was a real quick with the camera shots. So
Wow.
that was kind of crazy. And what my wife had picked up, she had believed that this thing was a spiritual Wendigo, because that area, if you research it in Columbus, is very
Okay.
Native American rich.
Right.
And we had believed that this entity was actually there at the house because of the mother, who was terminally ill. So it was kind of feeding off of that. And then you also had a teenager who was kind of like in an awkward stage. and was dealing with some things, and the mother, the father, they were arguing a lot. So there was a lot of negativity in that house.
Dang.
And it's crazy when you go to a location like that because you can literally walk through the threshold of the house.
Hmm.
If you're sensitive in any way, you can walk through the threshold, and the second you walk in, it just feels like depression and heaviness is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
That was
Wow.
probably my first real nasty experience, and I've had a couple others, but that one was wow.
So I mean that's crazy because like what do you do when you find yourself in that situation where because you may be going in and you're thinking it's just maybe ghosts or something, but that's obviously something that's like maybe demonic,
Mhm.
right? And so that's a whole other spectrum of stuff. And what do you do and how do you deal with that, or do you kind of hightail it and get some priests in there?
No, we stick it out. We stick it
Okay.
out. But I'm actually a certified demonologist, so I have a
Oh wow.
background.
Okay.
So I kind of know how to identify, how to protect myself, and then how to cleanse an area. It can be tricky, you know. Some are more difficult to get rid of than others. It's not something I like to come across,
Hmm.
but when we do, I am prepared to deal with it. Because what else are people going to do? You know, it's hard to get the Catholic Church out there to do anything. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very difficult. And most people, most investigators and people that deal in this, they can go out and investigate, but they're not equipped to deal with the problems that are there on site. So, like me, I'm not only a demonologist, I'm also a certified Reiki master. And that comes in, it's a very helpful tool, like, because you'll come across portals and things of that nature. And Reiki is great for closing
Yeah. I
up
don't know what
portals.
is that. What is Reiki? I'm not too familiar with that.
Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing. So it was developed in the very early 1900s. It goes back to Tibetan monks, and some believe it even goes back further than that. But what it does is the channeling of what they call life force energy.
Okay.
So you basically channel it from your higher self into the body and out the hands. And there's different symbols and mantras that you use to be able to project this energy. When you're performing Reiki on an individual, you're actually focusing that energy on their seven major chakras because people will develop blockages. And it's a way for people to deal with like emotional or physical traumas. But
Okay.
Reiki can also be applied when it comes to clearing spaces, closing portals, and a whole slew of other things. So it's very helpful. My wife being a medium is extremely helpful because she's able to actually connect with them. So she can, if she can make a connection with them on site, and they're not a hostile, it's very easy for her to move them on. So if we go to like
Hmm.
a normal haunting where it's just somebody trying to get attention and because they had something happen in life, they've been unwilling to move on and they just need help, she's very good at going in, being able to establish a connection and try to push them into going towards the light and to move on.
And is it a lot of times like does she find it's just they're either confused or they don't want to go and how does she kind of convince them to move on?
Well, I can tell you there's a few different things that we typically come across. So there's a lot of misconceptions about, you know, ghosts, we'll
Right.
call it. But the biggest thing I've come across and found out through EVPs and some of the evidence we've captured and experiences is spirits that haven't moved on. Typically, it's a few things. It's one, it could be that maybe they were a terrible person in life and they are petrified of what's waiting for them when they go on the other side. So they're like, nope, I ain't going. I'm staying here, and they get kind of stuck in limbo here and they don't want to move on. Another thing that we commonly see is if somebody passed tragically, you know, say they were, I hate to say it, raped, murdered. You know, that was so traumatic at the time of their passing that they're kind of stuck in that state of mind and they can't get out of it. So they need help to realize that and to kind of snap out of it to be able to move on. And then you've got stuff that I call um, elementals. And there's a lot of stuff here in Ohio, which this is fascinating because of the rich Native American background here in the state. There's a lot of earthbound entities that are not human or were never human that are here. And
Okay.
sometimes you
Right.
will come across those things at different investigations.
Oh
And
wow. How do
some
you deal with
people,
that? Like,
uh, those are really difficult to deal with. I won't lie. I mean, you can cleanse the area. You can go through and you can do a whole exorcism of the area and try to cleanse
mhm.
it. And sometimes it may be effective, and sometimes it may only be effective temporarily, and then it comes back. And the other part of that is too. It depends on the homeowner. You know, I can't tell you how many times if we go in to do a cleansing, or we got to do an exorcism on a house, we know when we're done from the feel of the house and everything that we've pushed whatever was there out. It's no longer there. It's either moved on or it's left the premise.
Mm-hmm.
So if the people that are living there, if they're fighting and they're in a constant state of turmoil or depression or anxiety, and they've got all that kind of just negative energy going on, these entities or trans-dimensional beings, whatever you want to call them, they feed off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not willing to change your behavior and your ways, and we go in and we do a cleansing, and you're right back to fighting, arguing, being miserable, just all that negative, low vibrational junk, they're very apt to work their way back in. And it's something we've seen. And anybody that claims that they can 100% get rid of something, they're full of crap. I don't care what they say.
So you're saying that, like there's, I mean, you have these, spirits or whatever it may be that are trying to go, to the next, side, go to heaven, whatever it may be. But I've also heard of, like people experience it kind of like out of body experiences and things like that. And even people who can do it at will and do that. Do you subscribe to that, or what do you make of it? What do you make of
That's interesting. I would say that pretty much gets into the field of astral projection, and astral projection, I believe, is a real thing. I've met people that are very good at astral projecting, where they can kind of put their mind into a trance and just kind of leave it. And I've met people that can actually see stuff at another location, because my wife and I, we own a metaphysical store, so we deal with a lot of psychically gifted individuals. And these people can literally focus on a location or a spot and be able to tell you everything that's going on there, or describe it in very good detail, and that it's a real thing. And then you've got people that, sometimes in the middle of the night, they may astral project. They don't even know they're doing it. They're just a natural astral projector, and they're leaving their body. And that gets dangerous if you also have a negative entity involved, because your body's vulnerable at that particular state. So
right. That's wild. So like, I mean, if these people are projecting onto other like dimensions or realms, like where are they going? Like, what is that, heaven that they're going to, or is it like
they're different? It's sometimes it's in this realm, this existence, on the physical realm, and then other times it's different. It's different dimensions or different layers. Mm-hmm. So this is going to get a little deep, and I won't get too much into it. But if you ever study the Kabbalah, they believe in what's called the Tree of Life. And the Tree of Life is basically like different levels that you can ascend to get to your higher self, or to get to holiness as much as you can. And people can actually, if they're well trained and they practice in it, be able to move up those different ranks or those different dimensions. And it's funny because on the Tree of Life, if you talk to multiple different people or read different books on the subject, people typically tend to report the same things in these different realms, which is fascinating.
Yeah, it's wild. I've been going on, and like probably for the past year and a half, on an Art Bell like binge, and just listen to all sorts of old episodes of Coast to Coast. And it's just he's had, over the years, he's had several different people who have been able to claim that they can actually project things like that, and it's just really mind boggling. And even there's claims that like the CIA had its own operation way back when, and lots of crazy stories, right?
They did. Some of that's declassified.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, what do you make of that?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure they still have some type of program going on. I mean, I've read people who were supposedly part of that program do interviews, and literally they would have an entire team of them. And during the Cold War, if they were trying to find like a Russian strategic missile site, they would get a team of these people and say, we need to know where this is. Look at this map and tell us where it is. And they would sit in a room and astral project and try to figure out the location. And then they would report to their handlers, whatever you want to call them, and they would go and investigate. And sure enough, these guys hit with very high accuracy on their targets. And if anybody ever wants to try to practice astral projection and see if they have that ability, or try to hone it, it's very simple to try to practice and see what you can do with it. Like a good example would be, say you're driving down the road, somebody else is driving, you're in the passenger seat, and you see two guys moving a roll of carpet into somebody's house and the door's open. Try to visualize in your mind, kind of like how you see memories. Try to visualize in your mind what the inside of that house looks like. what the people there are doing, you know, and practice that way. And then if you can go back and validate it with what you picked up, then, you know, you got something. Some people can do it very easily. Some people can't.
Wow. Hey, man, that's pretty wild. I love that kind of stuff though, man. That's crazy. So, um, I do want to ask though, because obviously a lot of people who go on these, investigations believe that you should have a strong connection with God or some sort of higher power to, I guess, to provide protection and whatever it might be. What is your opinion on that? And can you kind of talk to your own, beliefs or a little bit and what that does for you, I guess, on an investigation?
It's very important to believe in something bigger than yourself. So whether that's God, whether that's, you know, you believe in a universal spirit, you believe in whatever, something that's bigger than yourself. Everybody needs that. And you draw power from that. There's something subconsciously that people draw power from that. And when you're going in, like you're trying to cleanse an area, it's very important to have that faith because it's the intention behind it. It just adds another element when you're cleansing. And if you don't have that, it's not going to be very effective. So it doesn't matter if you believe in a Christian God, you believe in a Muslim faith, you believe in Wiccan, you believe in Satanism, whatever it is, you know. And I'm not a component of Satanism, but I'm just throwing it out there. You got to believe in something when you're doing this stuff because it's the intention behind it that's so important. It's just like I'm not a big Wiccan person, but I understand why people are drawn to it and why they believe it's effective. It's because, okay, I'm going to go and get certain stones, I'm going to get certain herbs, I'm going to get certain oils, I'm going to burn a candle, I'm going to do this and that. And I believe that all these things are going to help my intention go out into the universe. So you're kind of drawing from that belief and you're manifesting it and making it happen. So whatever faith you are, I don't think that's the most important thing. I think it's
Sure.
that intention and that belief behind it.
Sure. That's interesting. And man, it's crazy. So do you, these other religions, do you know, like, do they have their own ways of combating demonic entities, or is it something that specifically resides kind of with the Catholic Church, or has it just kind of become their specialty?
When it comes to the demonic, okay, so when it comes to the demonic, I'm a big believer in the Christian faith or the Catholic faith when you're trying to do an exorcism and get rid of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my background. Is I'm more Christian based than anything else, although I have a very open mind and I believe in the power of intention big time. But you may have like an earth dwelling elemental spirit, like I talked about, where that maybe isn't going to work for that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe you need a shaman to come in there who can come in and bless the land, burn some sage, and do a little bit of a ceremony to be able to banish it. So different things kind of call for different faiths, I guess would be a good way to put it, or different practices.
Right. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and kind of bring that, but I get, like, you guys go on these investigations. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to be getting into, and you just said, like, sometimes you may be seeing some sort of or experiencing these elemental entities, and but you're trying to get all this stuff on camera and on film and get,
Yeah.
evidence of this. Can you talk, like, what's the difficulty with that, and maybe Sam, you could talk a little bit about it too, of
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
how do you trying to be able to capture this whole thing on camera and really communicate that to people and like what you're experiencing?
So, all right. When I first started working with you, Trevor, and we were really getting going with that promotional video, one thing I noticed is this is unlike anything that I've ever filmed before. So I come in from a film background. I do movies. I've shot music videos, different things of that sort. Coming into a paranormal investigation and shooting that, you're really essentially kind of focusing on two separate things at once, and you have to almost develop a feeling for where to focus at what time, because there's the element of, the investigators, and it's really a story about them and, going on the investigation. But then to actually be able to gather that evidence, that's the other key focus too, and that's the higher priority focus. Because if you can, find on camera and be able to show paranormal evidence, that validates the entire, not just the video, but the investigative team and overall the field of paranormal investigation to begin with. So, some evidence that we look for, and a lot of times, Trevor, I know you'll be going through the EVPs and then some of the other stationary cameras that you had set throughout the house. And then I'll be going through in my footage and looking for orbs and whatnot. But then also there's a lot of it, when you're on location. So if, I know that, okay, if the EMF is going off, I needed to, probably include that in the video. The REM pod, for instance, was really going crazy down in the basement on this last investigation. And actually in November, we had one where the REM pod was going off in conjunction simultaneously to getting stick figure on the SLS camera, which I've always just kind of described as it's a motion tracking camera made from an Xbox 360 connect, and it can pick up spirits. I'm sure, Trevor, you can give a much better explanation technical than that, but
I am interested that I am interested in how you're using a connect on a like an investigation like that, and like, yeah, what's the
the
technique
device
behind
I have, I bought pre-made, so it was already put together for me, and the software was loaded. So
it?
basically, what that device is, it's a tablet. It's loaded with software that's been designed to connect with the Xbox Connect and be able to transfer that information into a program where it displays it as a stick figure that you can see. So it's infrared. There's just tons and tons of infrared points that the camera puts out. So even in the dark, it's going to pick up whatever's there. So if it's anything that it detects like a person, it's going to translate that onto the software as a stick figure, and you're going to see it. So like Sam's talking about the one investigation with the REM pod and the SLS, it was amazing because literally we watched this, whatever it was, come in on the ceiling in a stick figure form like it was crawling, come down on top of a REM pod, which I actually have the REM pod right here. You've probably seen these on TV.
Yeah.
And so the way this guy works is it puts out an electromagnetic field like around the antenna. So if anything disrupts it, I'll display it for you real quick.
Cool.
And we'll turn up the sensitivity maybe a little. So the closer anything comes to the antenna, the more this thing goes off. And you'll see it escalate. So when this stick figure got on top of this device, it literally was like hunched over and swatting with both arms at the antenna. And shortly after, this device went off. So it was pretty amazing to see that thing come into the picture.
Oh, wow.
Get on top of this device, start trying to interact with it, and then the device actually goes off. I mean, that's amazing stuff. That's what you want.
Wow.
So to kind of circle back to the original question about capturing it on camera, the more investigations that I've been on, the better feeling I've had to where should I be focusing on at a given time in order to be able to pick up that evidence. When should I be focused on, getting that equipment? Because when you can get that on camera and we can see it happening simultaneously on screen, that's the most definitive evidence that you can have. And that's going to, like I said, it's going to not only validate that particular, video and the particular, incident that we're covering, but also the field as a whole. So it's really about getting that feeling about where to focus on and when. And it's harder to explain. It's more of just an intuition that you develop.
Gotcha. Anything you want to add on that, Trevor? Like what is it that you're when you leave an investigation, like what is it that you're really hoping that you guys were able to, get there?
I'm hoping like if we get a lot of activity, that's the key. You want a lot of activity because the more activity you have, the more evidence you have, and the more stuff you have to go through. I love it when I get stuff that, like, especially on EVP or on camera, that gives us information for where do we go with this investigation. So, like a perfect example, Sam was with us on one. We definitely had a male spirit and a female spirit because they both came through on digital recorders, so we captured EVPs of those. And then a supposed static or shadow figure that was also on location. It was fascinating because we actually got the name, the first name anyhow, and we believe we figured out who it is, of the male entity or spirit that's there on location. And it was crazy because I'm listening through. We didn't catch it like on location. I caught it, of course, after the fact. And I'm going through listening, and I keep hearing this voice come through and go, "Era," and I'm like, "What the heck is
Hmm.
Era? What?" Or yeah, Era.
Yeah.
What's this? Is it trying to say Sarah? Because we had a Sarah on our team that was on that location, and I thought maybe he's trying to say Sarah. So I kept going over it again and again and again, and then analyzing it. I put it through some software that I have, and it kept definitely coming through as Era. So I looked it up, and back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the name Ira was pronounced Era for a lot of people.
Wow.
So it was
Weird.
strange, and
Huh.
it was a very clear EVP. And so when we went back, of course, we used that information. So if you can get a name, you can go back and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
Era, we know you're here. Can you please, tell us why you're here?" Whatever. It just helps to kind of draw them out a little bit when you can capture things like names and things of that nature, or you get evidence in a certain spot, and then
Mhm.
that just validates. Okay, if we go back, that's where we need to go. So
Very cool.
information that's helpful is what I'm looking for.
George Young in East Sparta too.
Yeah.
That one, because he was the one that was practicing witchcraft, and then we got confirmation. We kind of thought it was him, and then when I was filming Missy when she was doing her walkthrough, and I mean, he actually confirmed his name George right there on the EVP. You
Oh,
can hear.
I was actually watching that video earlier. Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, very that was pretty interesting. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Um, I was going to ask too because it seems nowadays like there's obviously been a ton of ghosts and paranormal investigation shows. I want to get into that in a minute, but these days it seems like so much is happening on YouTube. Like there's just kids that have their own YouTube like channels and they go do their own paranormal stuff, and it seems like they're all doing it. But are there things that you think like young people or anyone else who doesn't really know exactly what they're doing when they're going out into these situations, like what are the things that they should be maybe be careful about, or should they? And what I guess advice or caution would you give to some of these people?
I would say, definitely interview the people very well. So if you're going to somebody's home, like us, we have a 3-page investigation form that we have people fill out. So we can
Hmm.
get an entire background of, okay, what experiences have you have? Are you scared? Are you having nightmares? Just a whole collection of information. Are there anybody with any mental illness, health conditions? Because all that information helps us to rule things out or to kind of point us in the right direction. Um, Make sure you do your homework before you go into a location because something really bad could have happened to somebody there and they're not telling you. And if you go in blind like that and it's something very easy you could have figured out before you got on site, you could prepare a little bit more. Like we have different rituals that we perform sometimes before we go on location where we might do like a holy cross on the back of the neck with an oil. We might burn sage and sage ourselves before we go into a location. A lot of times we like to do a prayer, not always, but usually we like to do a prayer. Something to kind of protect yourself spiritually a little bit because the last
Hmm.
thing you want is an attachment. And I would tell anybody that's getting into this or going to a location, never ever go to a location if you're not in a good frame of mind. So if your girlfriend just broke up with you and you're miserable, don't go to a haunted location.
Because you're like I guess weaker, or
You're weaker,
you're in
and,
a good state.
if there is something negative there, you're going to be a draw for it.
Mm,
They
negative
don't like
energy.
to attach or hitch a ride with people that are strong minded, strong willed, and have their stuff together. They like to go after people they see as weak, that are hurting, and those are the people they like to attach to.
Okay. Oh, very cool. Very interesting. I do want to talk about some of the ghost investigation shows and stuff too. It seems like there's been so many of them on TV, and I know a lot of people. You say it nowadays, and they're like, "Oh man, it seems like people think that either they're fake or they're just overly produced or whatever it might be." But I want to ask, like, do you personally like what are the shows that you enjoy, or are there any ones that you would recommend and be like, "Hey, these are the ones. These guys like they know what they're doing, and they're legit."
The shows I would recommend that I really like because they're different. I like to watch things that are different because maybe you can take something from that and be able to
Hmm.
apply it and then develop it into something new. Take it somewhere nobody else is done. Because the thing that drives me nuts about this field is too many people get into it and they're all copycatting each other and they're not
Yeah.
really bringing anything new to the table. Uh, for that reason, the shows I would recommend would be I like Kindred Spirits. It's a great show. It's got Amy Bruni and Adam Berry. I like the way they investigate. It's very simple. They go in with a digital recorder. They do a lot of homework before they even step on site, which is ideal. And they ask questions with the digital recorder, and they get a lot of really good information that way. It's very simple, very effective. So their technique works. Another great show that I really like that unfortunately only made it one season would be Dave Schrader's Holzer Files. The Holzer Files is a great show. They go back and they pull up these old cases, and they
And it's with his daughter, right? I think Holzer's daughter is on it or something.
So Dave Schrader partnered with Holzer's daughter, and she actually gave him access to all of her father's files. So he took that information and then went out and reinvestigated them, and they captured a lot of really good evidence on some of those shows that I think are above anything else I've seen on any of those shows. Like there's one where they went to a train museum or station in Cleveland. Okay. And he sent his one guy underneath one of these train cars that they call the death car.
I'm not going down there.
You see this arm and his hand that just looks gnarly come out underneath this car and actually grab his guy. And it caught the whole thing on video and freaked the dude out. But it was like, you could clearly see it. There was no disputing it. That's a great show. And I would say the Dead Files I really like also. And I like the Dead Files because Amy Allen, she's a medium. She's very good at going into a location and picking up what's going on. And they do it separately. So she goes in, and then Steve, the other guy, he's an ex-detective from New York. He goes and he does all the legwork, digging up the history and then quizzing people and finding out what's going on. And then they come together at the end of the show. So they've had no interaction up to this point. She's done her part. He's done his part. There's no contaminating each other's investigation. And then they compare notes. And I like that because that's what I try to bring to our investigations. And that's part of the reason why I bring two mediums on every location, which I'm fortunate because a lot of people don't have access to mediums like I do because of my wife. But it's cool because I'll have one go through a location, do the walkthrough. They don't explain anything that they experienced on their walkthrough, and then we send the other medium in. And she goes and does the walkthrough. And then we have them come back together and we go, okay, what'd you two find? And literally they compare notes, and there's no interference with the information that they're gathering. And having two of them there is nice because you get validation. Right. Like a lot of people, if you only have one medium, sometimes it's a little bit of a guessing game for them. They might go on a location and they pick up on two things really strong, and the rest of it, they're kind of thinking, okay, I think I'm picking up on this. So if you get another medium that comes in, they can either say, no, I didn't get anything on that, or no, I hit on that, and they did it separately. So you can kind of validate what they're picking up on.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, like what where are you guys planning to kind of take, Rogues Hollow from here, and like what are the next few things that, people who follow you guys can expect to see?
Well, what we're working on right now, we're putting together a whole series of episodes, and we're slow rolling them out on our Rogues Hollow Paranormal Facebook page. And then once we're done shooting the series, we're going to put together a real nice short. And we have several different platforms on social media that we're going to blast that out to. And all the episodes will actually be uploaded to YouTube for people to be able to go and watch the full episode.
Oh, very, very cool. Well, that's awesome.
So our goal is we're busy with investigations right now. I didn't even get to tell you, Sam, but we've got another opportunity this Saturday. I can't say the location because the people don't want us to disclose it. So we may not film at this one, but we may do a Facebook Live. So, and then we've got another investigation coming up in Nerva, a couple here in Louisville. So we got a lot of big stuff, but the goal is to get out to as many people as we can. So people want us to go out and investigate so we can put together maybe 2 teams and really go hit it well, because our big goal is we want to be able to help people. We want to be able to go on site, get the information, try to figure out what's going on. And if they want help getting rid of it, try to help them get rid of it, because not a lot of people can.
Yeah. Wow. It seems like you guys have, all the, the skills you need to do that with everything that you could do combined, with your wife and everything. Like, where do you see, this, your group, like in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, where do you envision like taking this whole thing?
I see us kind of being a lot more spread out over the state of Ohio and having multiple teams. It won't just be one team. We'll all be under the same group, and we'll work together. But a couple of teams at least is ideal, and to get out to as many people as we can, to develop new ways to be able to investigate, to be able to take what we have for our background, expand on that, and apply it to the paranormal, and then to try different ideas that people haven't tried. We want to do something that's different, something that's effective. Yeah. And that's kind of a big thing that we're working towards.
Very cool. So yeah, where can people go and find more about what you guys are doing at Rogues Hollow and kind of follow your adventures?
Yeah, actually, if people want to follow us on Facebook, that's the best place to go. Just look up Rogues Hollow Paranormal, and Rogues is spelled Rogues. Follow us on there. We post. We're starting to post lives up on there. We post some of our episodes, and we've got a lot more content coming on the Facebook page. We will be branching out to TikTok and a few others, but we're trying to get the season of episodes recorded first before we really go super crazy with it. So one thing at a time.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I understand that. So Trevor, thanks again for coming on and talking to us. Before we get going, is there anything else you wanted to say, or maybe even, say anything to, any of your supporters or fans watching or anything like that?
I would just like to thank everybody who has supported us and donated to us, and have been very encouraging in pursuing what we're doing. And I'd like to thank Ghostbait, Sam.
Yeah, I draw him out.
He's been very helpful on investigations, because for whatever reason, I don't know if it's he's just so innocent, but the spirits seem to love Sam. So thank you, Sam.
Man. Yeah, that's so funny. Maybe we'll have to use that nickname in the magazine from now on, Ghostbait. That's a good one.
It's always going to be Ghostbait.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. So, Trevor, thanks again for coming on. I'd love to, bring you back on maybe in a few months after you guys, wrap up everything, and we could see, more about, what has happened with these last investigations. But this has been a fun chat, and, hopefully our listeners got a lot out of it, but this has been fun. So thanks again.
I appreciate you having me on. It's been a good time. If you ever want me back on, just let me know. And if you want a real treat, maybe I'll bring the wife on too.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Absolutely. We'll absolutely do it next time. So thanks again, folks. Go and check out Rogues Hollow. We'll be sure to link it all out in the description and everything. So be sure to check that out and go check them out. More to come. And thanks again. And we will see you guys next time.